Hey everybody, Adam and Tim here to give you this week's fishing report. We had a pretty good week. Conditions going into the weekend, not a lot of rain, so water's low in a lot of your freshwater places. We got the smokiness going on outside, so be careful if you're out there. But the weather looks good for the most part, maybe a little bit of rain, but cloud and rain can be a good thing for fish. So let's get right into it and talk about some rockfish. Timmy, take it away.
So we are now in the dog days of summer. All right,
Roof.
the water's hot and the bite's been kind of slow in the open bay. Most of the action has been concentrated early in the morning around shallow water structure with good current moving over it. Places like Poplar Island, the Patapsco River. Really anywhere you have good structure, those fish can hold on to. But most of the bite's going to kind of die once the sun gets high, like usually 7, 8 in the morning. So it's key to get out earlier, fish at night. Evening time can be productive too, but just depends on how much that water heats up throughout the day. And one of my favorite ways to fish this time of year is just throw top waters early in the morning or through the night. This is just a bone, head, and spook. Works pretty well. You can also do well on poppers. Once the sun gets up, or if they're just not committing all the way to a top water, you can throw little paddle tails like this. I personally like throwing small profiles this time of year, stuff in like the 3 to 4 inch range, just to match like the silver sides and the peanut bunker that we often see. Fishing's been pretty good. One thing to caution is just water's hot, release mortality is up, so just take care of your fish. If you're keeping fish, maybe just try to get your limit and then move on to perch or croakers, which has been pretty good. A lot of people catching jumbo spots and nice croakers on deeper water structures, places like the Bay Bridge, or like a lot of the artificial reefs we have around here. You can throw stuff like these sabikis with bloodworms, lugworms, fish bites. Really any natural bait will work pretty well for those fish, and get yourself a nice fish fry.
One thing just to remember about the rockfish, guys, once we hit August 1st, you can no longer target them, you can no longer harvest them for the whole month of August. So if you want to do your rockfish, and make sure you get that in now. Let's talk about some white perch for a minute. They are here, guys, they're here in the shallows. We had a little scare last year with how scarce the white perch were, but we're finding a lot more of them this year in all of your rivers local to us, the Severn, the Magothy, the Chester, but really in any of your rivers, you guys can go find some perch. You target docks, target rocky points, target grass lines, and you can do that with just a little bit of a rooster tail. Gold blade is always good. I like that chartreuse color, but really any spinner like your perch pounders, things like that. If you're not finding them up shallow, like Timmy was saying about your artificial reefs in any of your rivers or in Eastern Bay or anything like that, you can drop down a sabiki with some grass shrimp or bloodworms, some soft crab bits, anything like that might give you a good shot at some white perch. As far as catfish goes, what are you hearing about that, Timmy?
I've been hearing a lot of catfish being caught in some of the deeper holes in the upper parts of the rivers, like the Patuxent, the Potomac. Our local rivers, I haven't heard a whole lot from the Severn or Magothy, but I'm sure you could definitely catch some fish, fishing like 20, 25, 30 foot of water or so. Any kind of chunk bait. Fresh is usually best, like if you can get fresh bunker, fresh spot, any just cut bait on the bottom will work well on a fish finder rig. If you want to mix it up a little bit though, we have these cat beakies here, which give a little color and a little flash to your bait. They just got a little bead in front of the hook, and you get 2 hooks, so it's legal in the bay. They're great for those smaller catfish. If you're in like 10 to 15 inch channel cats or so, they could work pretty well, and you might luck into a double header, which would be a lot of fun on a light rod.
Yeah, absolutely, and it is mostly channel cats around right now. The blue cats are not much a fan of the heat, so most of what I'm hearing being caught is channel cats. Moving down the bay a little bit, we're starting to see some more of our classic summertime species. Bluefish is, I know, pretty good right now. I would say anywhere from like Poplar and south, you have a good chance of finding some decent sized bluefish. There are some like little snapper blues up here in the upper bay by the bridge and by the mouths of some of your rivers. Sometimes you'll see the birds diving on like really little rain bait, and they've got those just little snapper blues underneath of them. But the further south you go, the bigger the blues seem to be getting, especially around Sharps Island Light. A lot of people have been talking about that. They are around. You can troll for them using planers and spoons or hoses. That would be a really good option. Or you can try and mark them on your fish finder, jig for them with a metal, or if you get lucky, you might see them on the surface just blitzing like crazy, in which case you would also want to throw a metal. These little Yozuri Hydra shots are great. They've got a nice weight to them for how small they are. I think they're 7/8 of an ounce for being that small. And they have a nice sort of like tight wiggle through the water like that, whereas, you know, some of your classic sting silvers just come through the water straight. This one has a nice wiggle, so I really like to throw that. So that's kind of it as far as bluefish is concerned. We haven't heard too much about Spanish mackerel yet. I've heard a couple reports here and there of them like Point Lookout and south, but they're not really here in reliable numbers to target, at least in Maryland waters of the bay. Some other stuff going on, like Point Lookout and south is going to be cobia. You want to tell us how to target them, Timmy?
Yeah, for sure. So there's a couple ways you can do it. The simplest way might be just set up on a channel edge and chunk and chum for them. Live eels work great. Cup bunker will work as well. That can be an effective way, especially if you're out there on a windy, cloudy day where it's tough to sight fish. But a lot of guys like to, you know, get up on their towers or get some makeshift towers built on their boat and cruise around until you can find them on the surface. And for that, you know, you can throw live eels, you can throw big bucktails, big plastics. One of the cool baits that I've been looking forward to try are these Duratec eels right here. I imagine you put these in front of a cobia's face, it'd stand a good chance of eating it if it's in a feeding mood. Cobia tend to like to orient towards things, so if you can find like a school of cow nose or something like that on the surface, that can increase your chances. But a lot of it with the sight fishing game is just putting in miles until you find them.
100%.
And that, you know, that's been concentrated in the lower part of our Maryland waters, like out of, you know, Cape Point Lookout, off the islands of the Tangier, and yeah, it's a fun fishery if you can get out there and try it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then red drum. So our bull reds have sort of vacated the shallows by this point. That water's really warm in the shallows, so they're going to be schooled up in open water, which is, again, similar to the cobia, a game of just covering water and finding them. If you're really, really lucky, you might find them busting on the surface, but for the most part, you're going to be relying on your electronics to find those schools of fish. You can run channel edges anywhere from like Sharp's Island Light south. Anywhere from there and south all the way down to the Bay Bridge Tunnel, you might have a chance of running into those reds. You should run around channel edges. These 8-inch NOBNs have been pretty good, especially in this natural sort of greenback color. It looks like a bunker. A lot of guys have been having success with those. But yeah, you just got to cover water to find those reds. That's really the bulk of it. If you want to troll while you're looking for cobias and reds, you can put out some of your bigger spoons or hoses behind planers. If you're looking for cobias and reds on the troll. Moving down to the ocean, the wreck fishing has been really good. Do you want to talk about that, Timmy?
Yeah, people are pulling up a mixed bag of sea bass, triggerfish, and some flounder on some of the nearshore structures. You know, you can fish bait on high-low rigs like these. I know these are really popular. The deadly tackle, deadly tackle rigs. You can jig gulps, something like this, or really any soft plastic will work pretty well. Either on like a chicken rig if you're getting snagged a lot, or just on a jig head. Good baits would be like squid probably, or some cut bait would work pretty well.
So when you're out there fishing those wrecks, keep an eye out for other stuff. You might see bluefish cruise by. You might even see a cobia cruise by. So while you got your bait down on the bottom, just keep your eyes peeled. Out in the canyons, full of life right now, guys. We've got mahi finally starting to show up on the balls, plenty of billfish, tons of yellowfin, a couple big eye, and the tile fishing remains reliable as well. So pick your days, make sure you're looking at weather and get out there when you can. We do have these new trolling plugs from Shimano. It's their Ledge Runner. It has an adjustable depth, which is pretty cool. You just kind of move the split ring right there, or it's not a split ring, it's just a ring, and you can move that and adjust the depth. Those are going to be really, really great out there trolling. Moving on to, well, in the back bay, we'll talk about that first. Water's really hot. It's kind of tough. There's a couple short tog around. Really the best thing in the back bay is going to be like sheephead at the inlet and around some of the structure. You might find rockfish or bluefish at the 50 bridge, but overall it's been a pretty tough bite there in the back bay. As far as some freshwater stuff is concerned, remember guys, as we always say, if you can't catch anything else, you can go catch a bluegill on a night crawler under a bobber. And then some smallmouth fishing. Rivers are still really low right now, guys. It's warm. Those fish are probably going to be concentrated in deeper pockets. So you can go at them with something like a mag draft. Represents like the shad and the herring pretty well in your Monocacy, Susquehanna, Potomac rivers. Swim baits tend to get smoked by smallmouth. And I have heard of people catching them, but again, it's a little tough with how low the flows are right now. If you get out there early in the morning or in the evening, throw a whopper plopper. That's probably when they're most likely to feed, and smallmouth hit a topwater like no other. As far as the largemouth go, summer heat, it's tough to catch them in the midday. I would look for early morning or, right before sunset, as with a lot of our other species here, and target structure. So laydowns, rock piles, things like that in any of your local ponds and lakes. I know that there's been a pretty decent bite coming from the mill ponds on the eastern shore in the early mornings. Great summertime tactic is a Nico rig. It's basically just a wacky rigged worm with a nail weight in it. You can use one of these wacky tools to get your O-ring on there, but that can tend to be really effective and just a little bit of a different presentation than your typical just weightless wacky. Last thing we'll talk about is snakehead. You want to touch on that, Timmy?
Yeah, sure. I've been hearing a lot of people doing well with snakeheads down on the eastern shore and some of the western shore tributaries as well. Paddle tails have been effective. Topwaters, if you get up really early, like topwater frogs and whatnot, if you're fishing some heavier cover. But for the most part, I've been hearing people do well on chatterbaits, paddle tails, and subsurface stuff. Places like the lower eastern shore rivers, and I'm sure the Patuxent and upper Potomac and whatnot. But yeah, those fish, I've been hearing of some fish on fry, some fish not on fry, depending on where you're fishing. But yeah, it's a good time to get out and do that. Just try to focus on the early morning hours. Before that sun starts beating down too hard. For sure. And then crabbing has been really, really good, guys. You want to go out there with pole traps, I would recommend razor clams. In your pots, I would also recommend razor clams. If you're doing a trot line, razor clams or chicken necks, and obviously you guys can hand line with chicken necks too. But there's plenty of crabs. There's plenty of crabs up shallow, so any of your local parks where you want to go do it from shore or from your own property, you have a good chance at getting some crabs for dinner. But that just about does it for this week's Fishing Report. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.